The swift victory had become a quagmire. Every piece of intelligence suggested that the Falcons would behave just as they had before. Their predictable arrogance was to be their undoing. At least that was the plan. In the 4 hours since the drop into the salt marshes of this Kerensky-forsaken continent, the Falcons had proved elusive. They hit from concealment, bolstering their force's strength through dishonorable subterfuge. By avoiding a straight-up fight, Star Captain Qian Sender's binary of medium and heavy battle mechs had been pecked at by the irritating Falcons until there were just 3 battle mechs left, stalking through this disgusting, water-sogged terrain. The Falcons had taken their share of casualties, of course. Occasionally a conjurer or a mist lynx would poke its head out and catch an ERPPC shot or a Gauss rifle slug, sending the lighter mechs face down in the muck. However, Sender's summoner was showing considerable damage from the harassing fire. Still, they marched forward. Mechwarrior Lin led the way in her Timberwolf, while Mechwarrior Erix pulled up the rear in his Nova. Sender's scanners were pulling up all sorts of phantom signals in this muck and mire. The systems were having trouble keeping tabs on the light mechs who were able to more easily transverse the water and the thick layer of organic material. Every step of the summoner felt as if it were being pulled deeper and deeper into the swamp. Dancing blue and green laser fire stabbed out from behind a large fallen tree, and Senders twisted to return fire. His ERPPC shot vaporized much of the tree's trunk, but the target behind it fell back out of harm's way. Lin's Timberwolf stumbled forward, the ambush shot having cleaved through her mech's right arm. It dangled from its myomer at the elbow, now useless. "These dishonorable Strevegs will not leave this swamp," Lin growled into the wolf comlink. "On your left," Sander shouted into the comlink as he saw the movement. A black lantern was crouching just above the muddy water, and it clearly had a bead on the Timberwolf. A pair of medium pulse laser shots danced across the Timberwolf's already damaged torso, ripping deeper into the heavy mech. Their intense energy was followed up by a string of a dozen SRMs which all found their mark. The explosions bathed the front of Lin's Timberwolf, which looked like it would hold up against the barrage, but an anguished cry of pain over the comlink suggested otherwise. The 75-ton Timberwolf slumped forward, not quite able to fall with its feet firmly planted in the mire. Sender's LB-10X shot kicked up the swamp water around the Black Lantern as the hardened shot peppered the medium mech. He followed up with the ERPPC, which ripped into the Falcon mech's shoulder and melted armor as if it were paper thin. He was going to follow up on the shot when his attention was pulled away by Erix, who yelped into the comm line, "On our flank!" The Wolf's low-profile medium mech was half submerged in the swamp, which helped a little with what was otherwise an extremely heat-disadvantaged battle mech. Plumes of steam rose up around it as he fired his ER medium lasers at targets only partially visible. Sender's lock on the Black Lantern was good, so he fired his LRMs. A good number found their target, further pummeling the Black Lantern as it scrambled up to its feet and began to fall back. Sender growled as he turned to the summoner so that the remains of the Timberwolf were at the mech's back. Lin might be out of action, but her mech could still be useful. Erix was maintaining a good, steady pattern of shots to keep the Falcons at bay. Sender's frustration was reaching a boiling point as he gripped the control sticks of the summoner hard. He didn't want to admit that he was no longer in control of this battle. The request for Hegira seemed unlikely to be successful. Still, he was a wolf and would not surrender to any Jade Falcon. The sporadic incoming fire faded and then stopped entirely. Erix's laser snapshots slowed and then stopped, and he stepped his mech backwards to be more in line with the summoner. "Star Captain, I'm alive, but the Timberwolf is done," Lin said over the comlink in a strained and tired voice. The words were barely spoken before the first of the LRMs started to impact the muddy water around the Nova and summoner. Sender's eyes scanned for their source, but they seemed to be coming from a great distance. Something was spotting for them. The missiles primarily hit the Nova, driving it down into a crouch in the muck as more and more impacted the mech's armor. Eventually, the streams of missiles punched through and cracked into the cockpit. Erix didn't make a sound over the comlink. The mech simply fell forward slowly into the swamp. Now alone, except for a dispossessed Mechwarrior on his flank, Sender scowled and opened a general comlink. He began to speak. "This is Star Captain Qian Send..." He managed to get out just before he saw 2 light mechs skulk out from cover, one on each side of his mech. They were identical, with bird-like frames but packed with weaponry. Their diminutive size hid a deadly payload. and Sender wasn't able to turn and address one without feeling the wrath of the other. Their laser fire cut into his already wounded mech with merciless efficiency. He finally turned to the right and lined up a shot, but the target leapt forward, practically launching itself out of the muck into a run that sent the ERPPC wide, scorching water into steam behind the Falcon mech. The summoner shuddered, stumbled, and it looked like every warning light in his console was lit up and flashing incessantly. Sender pulled hard and tried to keep the mech upright, but every second brought fresh insult as the laser fire cut deep into the summoner's bones. The mech toppled, smacking unceremoniously into the swampy water. Star Captain Qian Sender didn't eject, he just let the water darken his cockpit. It's always been difficult to follow up on a hit, especially when that hit is one of the most common and successful clan Omnimech designs. The Fire Falcon was the end result of a project within Clan Jade Falcon to create a successor Omnimech to the Mist Lynx that could run faster, carry more and varying weapon loadout options, and have slightly more protection while not having to give up too much in other areas. It was a bold plan, and by the time the mech was hitting the production lines, even the normally arrogant Jade Falcons were concerned that it might not be a success. Only the inevitable passage of time and the performance of the BattleMech would prove it one way or the other. Fresh off the production line in 3052, the 25-ton Fire Falcon had a lot of promise. With a JF-3 light endosteel frame, a JF-200XL engine, and a compound JF ferrofibrous armor, no technology was spared in order to minimize weight while maximizing pod space. 10 double heat sinks would help keep the mech cool, while just 4 tons of armor shielded the mech from incoming fire. The JF integrated communication system and Series JF-8 kit targeting and tracking system complete the set of core parts, which were all domestically produced on Ironhold by Clan Jade Falcon. It was clear that the clan did not want to have to rely upon other clan supply chains, which might slow production. Out of the total 25 tons, the Fire Falcon has 10 tons of pod space available. That's 40% of the overall weight of the BattleMech. In comparison, the Mist Lynx has 7.5 tons of pod space. That difference is created by the emission of what some consider a deal breaker with the Fire Falcon. Though the Fire Falcon's top speed is 129 km per hour compared to the Mist Lynx's 118 km per hour, the lack of integral jump jets buys the Fire Falcon the difference in weight. Now it's up to you if you want to exchange the agility for weaponry, but as the mech started to filter out into Clan Jade Falcon units, the reports for Mechwarriors were positive. On Tukiad, Comguard forces were introduced to this new BattleMech when a star of Fire Falcons in their B configuration were able to stall an advance of heavier Comguard mechs through consistent and accurate ER-large laser fire. After the first production runs saw success in their deployment across the Lyran border in the Jade Falcon occupation zone, the mech was made available for purchase to the other clans. Adoption was slow, but by the 3060s and early 3070s, the Fire Falcon was seen among the forces of the Coyotes, Cloud Cobras, Goliath Scorpion, Hell's Horses, Ice Hellion, Stone Lion, and a large number were purchased by the Fire Mandrills, who appreciated the aggressive nature of the design. Eventually, a second production line was set up on Sudaten, which was within the Jade Falcon occupation zone in the Inner Sphere. This was fortuitous, as the Steel Viper's attempt to wipe out the Jade Falcons across the clan homeworlds resulted in the complete destruction of the Fire Falcon production line on Ironhold. Reports suggest the damage was not repairable, so without a concerted effort, which is unlikely, the number of Fire Falcons across the home clans can only shrink over time. The Steel Vipers earned some time in their punishment box for that one, and no dessert either. The Fire Falcon had a tough road on which to travel, as so many seemed to have trouble understanding why it existed when mechs like the Mist Lynx were already around. Over time, and by putting up the numbers, the mech proved its worth as a scout and rapid harassment battlemech. When paired with medium mechs like the Black Lantern, Nova, and Stormcrow, Mechwarriors reported great success and a near multiplicative effect in force projection. Often acting as bait to lure heavy mechs into the open, Black Lanterns would swoop in from the sides for the killing blow. The Black Lantern and Fire Falcon partnership became so commonplace that where one was spotted, it was safe to assume the other was lurking. At the dawn of the O-Clan era, Fire Falcons found a new camaraderie, though this time it was the heavier member of the partnership. The introduction of the Ion Sparrow, a 20-ton mech with a variety of loadouts that tended to focus on short-range fights, were used in tandem with Fire Falcons to rain down prolific amounts of fire on a target, be they battlemech, infantry, or vehicle. On Sky, in March of 3150, Jade Falcons and Fire Falcons and Iron Sparrows were instrumental in disrupting an attempt by Clan Wolf forces to orchestrate a head-hunting ambush against Galaxy Commander Noritomo Helmer. Pouncing on the wolves, the Iron Sparrows used their speed and jump jets to draw enemy fire, while the Fire Falcons followed up with killing strikes. The standard configuration of the Fire Falcon is a delightful mixture of medium and short-range weapons. In the right arm are 2 ER medium lasers and 2 ER small lasers. The left arm houses a medium pulse laser for some hefty and accurate punch, and 2 Streak SRM-4s in the left torso round out the build. It's a straightforward setup, and up to 10 hexes, the Fire Falcon's going to be consistently wrecking other light mechs, infantry, and battle armor. From 11 to 15, the mech's damage drops off, but it really shouldn't be out in the open at distances like that anyway. Unlike some of the other Omni-Mech designs with questionable primary configurations, the Fire Falcon Prime is a good pick for general use. Speaking of longer ranges, the A configuration of the Fire Falcon answers the call. The build features an Ultra AC2 autocannon in the right arm with a ton of ammunition in the right torso. Backing it up is an LRM-10 in the left torso, also with a single ton of ammunition. Finally, when all else fails and you want to melt someone's face at close range, an ER small laser fills out the last half-ton of space. With the UAC-2 able to shoot out to 27 hexes and the LRMs at 21, the Fire Falcon A can make an impression from a long distance. However, the amount of damage is limited. I'm not a big fan of the A because it devotes 6 tons of the 10 tons of pod space to a weapon that does 2 or 4 damage per turn. If you want to create a fire support Fire Falcon, a second LRM launcher would have been the way to go. At least in 3052 before the advanced tactical missiles hit the scene. The Fire Falcon B configuration is the sniper version of the battle mech. It's equipped with a pair of ER large lasers backed up with a targeting computer. That's a spicy Fire Falcon, though with only 10 double heat sinks, you're going to have to do a little bit of heat management with the 2 lasers that'll pump your heat up to 24 if fired together on the same turn. Still, it's a relatively cheap buy for a couple of ER large lasers on the battlefield. Tread lightly and carry 2 big sticks. Now, the Fire Falcon C configuration turns the mech into a well-armed scout with an anti-personnel capability. The primary weapons are a medium pulse laser in the left arm and a pair of SRM-6s in the left torso. An ER small laser and a small pulse laser join the MPL in the left arm, and there are 4 machine guns in the right arm. Finally, the mech is equipped with an active probe in the head to rustle bushes and find those creeping ECM mechs running around. There are no heat issues, so go wild with this one. If you want a version that can hit heavy mechs in the back and crit seek, the C may be your best option from the original 3052 variants. Now, the last of the original variants is the D configuration, which trades a little bit of firepower for target acquisition gear and a NARC missile beacon launcher. If you're running artillery or fire support mechs, the D configuration would be a cheap option for putting missiles on target. In addition to the support equipment, the D config carries an ER medium laser in the left arm and 2 SRM-4s in the left torso. Of the 5 primary variants of the Fire Falcon that were popularized in 3052 with the mech's production, the Prime and the C config are the best fit with the mission statement from the lore for a quick, heavy-hitting light mech, with the D configuration getting an honorable mention as a more specialized loadout for artillery support. The A and B want to be snipers, but with as little armor as they have, all it takes is one lucky shot from an ER PPC or even an ER large laser to cause serious hurt for the Fire Falcon, so buyer beware. In 3061, the first of the newer generation configurations showed up. Fire Falcon E has a very Spartan weapon loadout of a single advanced tactical missile system 12 along with 3 tons of ammunition. At first glance, this may be underwhelming, but consider the possibility of hitting with that high explosive ammunition and doing up to 36 damage. That's not too shabby for a 25-ton battle mech. Now, I have some mixed feelings concerning the E configuration. While it does offer threats towards enemies at all ranges, recognizing the 4 hex minimum range, I tend not to enjoy single weapon builds that either result in big moments of joy or nothing at all. The ATM-12 is all the more frustrating if you do get a hit, then roll poorly on how many missiles hit, even with that +2 on the cluster hits table roll. The Fire Falcon E isn't a bad design, it just isn't one I would pick if there were other options. The Fire Falcon H is our first obligatory heavy laser variant from the 3060s. Thankfully, it's not as outrageous as some of our other recent 2C mechs covered on the channel. The primary weapons are a pair of medium heavy lasers and 2 medium pulse lasers. one of each in the left and right arms. Finally, a couple of small heavy lasers are found in the center torso for close range work. The critical flaw in so many heavy laser designs is the heat management, or more accurately, the complete lack thereof. The 13 double heat sinks are shockingly adequate for the Fire Falcon H. You can fire all 4 of the medium lasers and still be in the green, which is good because that's what you're going to be doing most of the time. In extremely close ranges, you can push it with the addition of the 2 small heavy lasers and go only +2 heat. That's really great. Good job, Fire Falcon H. You might have the H, but right now you're the A in our hearts. In 3072, the Fire Falcon F exposed the deeply seated desire to destroy large amounts of infantry and battle armor as quickly as humanly possible. The F's primary weapon is an ER large laser in the center torso. However, don't mistake it for a sniper, as the rest of the loadout is primarily short-range focused. The 2 ER small lasers and 2 ER micro lasers fill out in the arms. In the left and right torsos are 8 standard machine guns in 2 arrays of 4. Heat isn't an issue, and the mech can be quite effective at either the longest range with that ER large laser, or up close crit-seeking, or just completely decimating lighter units with the machine gun arrays and small lasers. Remember that after you roll a successful hit with a machine gun array, you roll on the cluster hits table for the size of the array. In the case of the Fire Falcon F, the 4 column. If all 4 hit, the damage is equal to the number of hits times the damage per each gun. If the target is a mech or a vehicle, all the damage is applied to a single location but as separate hits. So theoretically, a hit to the mech's head with a 4 machine gun array would trigger 4 consciousness rolls and 8 total damage. Not too shabby. If shooting an infantry, you don't roll on the cluster hits table, as all the machine guns are assumed to hit. A 2d6 is rolled and multiplied against the size of the array to determine the damage. On a perfect 12 roll, that would be 12 times 4, or 48 damage with the standard machine gun. Again, not too shabby. Overall, I like the Falcon F, but if you're wary of doing a lot of dice rolling and want to speed up play, give the F configuration a pass. The rest of our variant configurations are a Dark Age era, so keep that in mind. The Fire Falcon G, first spotted in 3113, is the first variant to mess with the running speed, as a supercharger is added to improve it in bursts up to 16 hexes, or 160 km per hour. The primary weapon is a large improved heavy laser, which can reach out to 15 hexes and do 16 damage. The cost is paid in 18 heat generation. Thankfully, heat really isn't an issue because the only other weapon is a Proto-Mech AC-4, which only generates a single point of heat when it fires. It shares the short, medium, long distance ranges with the large improved heavy laser and can do 4 damage per shot. The risk of carrying the large improved heavy laser is mitigated on light mechs like the Fire Falcon, because if you're taking a critical hit on the arm anyway, it's likely gone, and the case prevents the damage from continuing on. If you prefer quick turns with just a couple of dice rolls, and the possibility of doing 16 damage to a single location on a target, the Fire Falcon G may be the pick for you. In 3134, the Fire Falcon I configuration was spotted for the first time. Otherwise standard, the weapons loadout included 5 ER medium lasers spread across the arms and 1 in the right torso. Additionally, we see our first entry of the plasma cannon into the mix, added to the left torso. I'm not going to try to conceal my bias for the plasma cannon, as I think it's the sort of weapon that can really mix things up in a game, especially when it comes to fighting people who min-max their Omni-Mech builds to dance on the line of heat generation. Suddenly having to factor in the possibility of adding 2d6 heat to your mech if the plasma cannon hits is enough to make most players wary of wandering too close. The only downside to the Fire Falcon I is that there are only 10 shots for that plasma cannon, so make those shots count. The Fire Falcon L was ID'd in 3134, running with an ER PPC in the left arm and 4 ER small lasers in the right arm. The addition of a targeting computer aids all of them with a valuable -1 to those 2-hit rolls. If you prefer ER PPCs to ER large lasers, the config L could be a good choice over the A or B configuration. It's a bit of a it is what it is design that'll just work. If you are firing the ER small lasers every turn along with the ER PPC, there are some heat issues, but it's not an extreme problem. I like it, it works, go to town with it and fry off some faces with that ER PPC. In 3142, a mixed inner sphere and clan technology variant, designated R, showed up for a niche purpose. The mech is armed with 2 advanced tactical missile 3 systems in the left torso, but the more interesting weapon choices are the medium and small re-engineered lasers in the right arm. For the uninitiated, the re-engineered lasers are a product of House Davion's scientists who were trying to come up with a way to merge clan pulse laser technology with Inner Sphere standard lasers. The final result wasn't very impressive in damage or range, but it did have the curious property of being able to bore through specialized armors that usually reduce the effectiveness of energy weaponry. They don't suffer any of the damage reduction when hitting reflective armor, hardened armor, or ferrolamellar armor. It's always interesting to see Inner Sphere tech on a clan mech. It's a strange new world out there. Finally, there are a couple of micro pulse lasers in the left arm for clearing out infantry or crit-seeking open internal structure from extremely close range. If you knew your opponent was running specialized armor on their mechs, the R might be a good pick. But I can't think of more than a handful of mechs that do that, so the specialized nature of the R makes it less than ideal for almost every circumstance. Now finally we're at the last official variant, in 3142 with the T configuration. The Supercharger has made a return to the T, which boosts the speed up to 160 km per hour or 16 hexes, and there are plenty of things to fire when you get where you're going. The two medium improved heavy lasers in the right arm pack a good punch at 10 damage apiece, while the medium pulse laser in the left arm provides accuracy and that consistent 7 damage. A streak SRM-4 in the left torso is aided by an improved single-shot SRM-4, which is an interesting way to spend the spare half-ton of weight. The addition of a targeting computer is nice to see for the lasers, and it really helps improve what is an aggressive short-range variant. The downsides include the exploding improved heavy lasers, though still mitigated by that previously mentioned standard case thing, and the 10 double heat sinks are not quite up to the task if you enjoy a good Alpha Strike or 12. Not including the one-shot SRM and saying the Streak SRM-4 achieved its lock, you're looking at 27 heat per turn from weapons fire. Though to be fair, 6 points of that heat are generated by the improved small heavy lasers, which aren't going to be used very often. If you leave them out, it's almost heat neutral at 21. Wow, so that was quite the list. I think it really is a testament to the Fire Falcon that none of the variants are objectively or obviously poor designs. The R might be a little too specialized, but it still functions and can put fire on a target at close range. The A and B might be kind of awkward attempts to force the mech into being a long-range sniper, but again, if that's what you need at a relatively cheap battle value price, then go wild. Before we wrap this up, I do want to share a personal Mech Frog variant that I enjoyed in a recent game this past weekend. The Fire Falcon MF is standard and based upon the Prime. The right arm carries a plasma cannon with 2 tons of ammunition, and in the left arm, a medium pulse laser. The left torso packs a standard SRM-6 with 1 ton of ammunition. Finally, a pair of ER microlasers are set into the center torso. As I mentioned previously, the use of plasma weaponry can be a game changer and really mix things up, especially if your opponent is running on the edge or boldly running into the red by firing extra weaponry out of desperation. Being able to essentially stun lock a much heavier mech for a turn could make the difference between victory and defeat. I love the Fire Falcon because it has a good backstory, has a good variety of standard loadouts, and it's tailor-made for a Mechwarrior with a more aggressive disposition. That fits well with the Jade Falcons and with many players as well. The mech isn't for the timid, and the extremely thin back armor can result in the Mechwarrior's doom if you're not careful. So what's the verdict? Is the Fire Falcon found in your Tumen? Do you have your own specialized loadout that you like to run? Let me know in the comments, we'll keep the discussion going. Big thank you for hitting the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. The YouTube algorithm must be fed lest it become angry and spiteful. Going the extra step of becoming a channel member goes a long way, as each of these videos takes quite a few hours to put together. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Until next time, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.